I'm focusing on the Scrum Master. I'm going to flip over to the product owner in a minute. So say the Scrum Master really wants to learn, right? And he knows that a big chunk of what he needs to do is around facilitation. How does he know? Are there any indicators that would let him understand or be aware that his attempts at improving his facilitation skill is really yielding any progress?
Yeah, Ajiri, facilitation, the word facilitation comes from this Italian word called facili. So the idea is you're a third party, ensuring that your group can come up with a decision. That's what facilitation is all about. So as a third party, you do not have any inputs. First of all, you need to look at every event. Let's take the example of the events in Scrum. Do we know the purpose of each event? And are we able to communicate the purpose well? So really start with the why, start with the end in mind. Are we getting to the purpose? Whether it might be sprint planning, daily Scrum, the review and the retrospective. And to ensure that that purpose happens, how we could facilitate that meeting to get this team to make that decision and make it really well. Well, how do you do that? You do that by actually understanding purpose and then ensuring that everybody in the team knows those purposes and who are the attendees. Another thing that you might want to keep in mind is you have a specific time box. You want to keep to the time box or up to that time box. So that is really important. There are a couple of books that really helped me get there. One was Sam Kainer's book, which is all about facilitator guide to participatory decision-making. And that's a great book to think about. Another one is the Agile Retrospectives book. Both of them really changed how I facilitated and ensured that I want to make them come to a consensus at the end. They could go about, have divergent thinking. When they come back, they need to come up with a decision. The decision might be right, might be wrong. But we'll find out. The idea is the sprint is too short. So even if you actually fail or make wrong decisions, it's okay because you're going to learn. And keeping that in mind and keeping a really open mind, making sure you are silent and letting everybody else speak and make that decision. Those are the techniques you could learn from these two books that are going to help you quite a bit.
That's fantastic. So bringing this to something people can relate with. So in one of, like I did mention, for those who might have just joined, I've taken a number of courses with Daniel, and there was once he gave an illustration that stuck. So, kind of how yesterday we had someone come show us how to talk visually. So the illustration Anil gave kind of stuck in my head, the way the session from yesterday stuck in my head, right? So he talks about how you can take some of these practices and even apply it at home, right? So maybe you're not in this role yet, or, but you want to start practicing how to do some of these things, right? So Anil, you remember your illustration about building your home theater. I think that's a fantastic story. I don't know, putting you on the spot. If it's something you like to share again, it might be great for this audience to relate with.
Yeah, it was interesting because we were talking about sprint goals in sprint planning. And so how do you get to a sprint goal? Well, I had to, in the beginning of the pandemic, my children wanted to get a home theater in the basement. And it's like, we're going to spend a lot of time in our house. We should be able to have some entertainment. So Dad, can we build a home theater? Well, turns out that it's the beginning of the pandemic. I have no idea if I can have people come in and actually get the home theater done. Technical enough, I'm going to go ahead and build the home theater in my basement. Turns out again that since it's the pandemic, I do not know if the supplies are going to be there or not. So my first sprint that I did was, all right, let's have a sprint goal of ensuring that my customers can watch a movie. That was my sprint goal. And so the way we planned that sprint was, well, we're going to have a projector up there. We're going to have the screen up there. I was very optimistic, so I'm going to also have surround sound system and then also reclining chairs. I'm going to have everything there in that first sprint. My first sprint was 3 weeks because I'm also a full-time trainer and a coach. How much can I do in terms of building the home theater? Well, I was able to successfully put up the screen, successfully put up the projector. I could not get the reclining chairs on time. They were still on back order. Again, pandemic. The surround sound system was still in my garage, unpacked. And so it's 2.5 weeks left, 2.5 weeks done, and we have only half a week left. And so all I could do was actually have a negotiation with my product owner. Said, well, could I bring the chairs, the folding chairs from the backyard and bring it into the basement? And could I also take my Bluetooth speaker and connect it with the projector? And I did those two things. Well, did I meet the sprint goal, Ajiri? What do you think?
Yes.
My customers were able to watch the movie. Well, they threw tomatoes at me after watching the movie because they had a backache and they had, challenges listening to the sound. But at least they were able to watch the movie. That's a great example of creating a sprint goal that can help illustrate this whole idea of how something can be done, but not the plan can be changed. And you could do that with great collaboration with your product owner. Product owner in my case, is my wife. And I wanted to make sure that I have great collaboration. She allowed me to have those folding chairs in the basement for a little while. I'll take it until I got to the next sprint and fixed all the other things that I needed to fix. So that's an example of collaboration, example of facilitation, example of protecting the team using this great idea of the sprint goal.
Thank you very much. So for those currently in this role, so at least those who are more familiar with Agile, who can relate with some of what he said, you will find that he touched on a number of things right there, right? And also for the question we had initially and we had yesterday and which keeps coming about how Agile is different from Waterfall. If what he just explained was Waterfall, he would have failed that, right? Because you have things written in stamped and sealed. You must have, home theater kind of chairs. You will have this, you will have that, you will. And if you don't deliver those accordingly, then there's a problem. If you needed to change, you need to raise a CR and you need to go through all those hoops and have everybody sign off. But in Agile, what does the customer want? And at the end of the day, you deliver what the customer wants. And that is what he did, right? His children were able to watch the movie at the end of the day. They had a home theater at home. Did it have the promised chairs and all of that? No, but they had chairs. They had the screen. Yes, it was a projector. Yes, they had it. Yes, it was his Bluetooth speaker. But at the end of the day, the goal was achieved. So that's a way you can visualize in your mind the differences. If it was Waterfall, once he was not able to get delivery of the specific chairs, then a delay comes in because he needs to go back to the customer. He did that, right? But because Agile also is collaborative, your team is right there with you. His product owner is accessible to him at every point in time. He's able to have that conversation face-to-face, which is one of the things we encourage in Agile. Was able to have that face-to-face conversation, have it done, moved on to the next step, kept it going. But if he was doing that in Waterfall, he would have to go write up a really nice document explaining why this cannot be done, that cannot be done, what his mitigations are, have it signed, approved, vetted, come up with a new plan. And in all of that, maybe, it's 2 months or 3 months down the line, right? Okay.
One of the key things, Ajiri, I wanted to kind of share was what you mentioned, Waterfall, and in this particular context. In Waterfall, the team would be demoralized. Hey, we delivered everything, we gave it everything, and yet we failed. In Scrum, in this approach that I just shared, the idea was we delivered something, we got feedback. It was also something that my customers liked and something they did not like. Let me focus on the things that I did not like in the next sprint. And so they are looking forward to it. They're not demoralized. They are motivated to actually fix that problem that the customers noted in that